Welcome to the Ebbs of History, the show where we dive into the strangest, wildest, and sometimes downright creepiest stories the past has to offer. From dancing plagues to pirate queens, we'll laugh, we'll gasp, but most importantly, we will learn how history is way cooler than your textbook ever told you.
We are history-loving hosts, Zoe,
Gavin,
And I'm Jason, and in every episode the three of us will take a quick trip through time, then see what lessons we can still learn today. This is the Ebbs of History. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ebbs of History. Before we dive into today's absolutely bonkers story, let's check in. How was everyone's week?
pretty good. Back at school after winter break at the time of the recording. The NFL playoffs just started, so that's cool.
Very
Excited
cool.
for that.
Go Bears.
Yeah.
And Zoe, how was your week?
again, like Gavin said, we're back at school, so it's a little bittersweet, but I get to see all my friends, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Did you guys have a busy week at school?
Not that busy, not as, no tests because we're just getting back from break, and we're kind of just getting back into the flow of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So not much for a normal week.
Zoe?
I'm kind of the exact opposite. Rehearsals for my school's musical just started,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm there almost every day. And I also had a quiz on Friday, so that was fun.
I had a good week. It's chaotic a little bit. A lot of stuff going on at work with the new year and everything. So, although it was pretty good in general. Well, get ready because today's story is going to make your week look totally normal. Picture this: medieval Europe. A rooster allegedly lays an egg. And instead of people going, huh, that's weird, they went full courtroom drama and put the rooster on trial for witchcraft. Because apparently in the Middle Ages, when nature confused you, the only logical response was to lawyer up and prosecute livestock. Today we're diving into one of history's most ridiculous legal cases, where fear, superstition, and a very confused chicken collided in the worst possible way. All right, before we storm the medieval barn with pitchforks, let's talk about science for a second. Gavin, quick question. Can a rooster lay an egg?
I do not think so because it is a male bird.
Exactly correct. Gold star for basic biology. But here's the thing. There's always a but in history. So yes, roosters can't lay eggs, but sometimes people thought that they did. Here's how. Sometimes chickens get misidentified because, and I don't know if you know this or not, it's actually really hard to sex a chicken when they're young. And that means looking to see if they're male or female. There are people that can do it very quickly, but it's not 100%. Very hard to do. Sometimes a bird has a rare hormonal condition that makes a hen develop rooster-like features. But most likely, someone saw an egg near a rooster once. They told a neighbor, and by the time the story made it to the tavern 3 streets over, it was a confirmed fact. Basically medieval Twitter. No fact-checking, just vibes and panic. Now, medieval Europe didn't have biology textbooks or Google. What they had was folklore, religion, generalized anxiety, and the firm belief that invisible forces were constantly trying to ruin their day. So when a rooster supposedly laid an egg, this wasn't filed under nature is weird. This was filed under everyone panic now. Zoe, imagine you're a medieval villager and someone runs into town yelling, "The rooster laid an egg!" What's your reaction?
If I was someone in medieval Europe
Mm-hmm.
that believed in all the folklore and all the stuff like
Mhm.
that, probably say that it was some witchcraft or something.
Okay. You wouldn't be thinking interesting biological anomaly. You'd be thinking, how long until it hatches into a murder monster? Enter stage right, the basilisk, or the cockatrice, depending on which part of Europe you're in at the time and what your local nightmare folklore preferred. These creatures were basically medieval final boss monsters. Part snake, part rooster, part delete your entire village. People genuinely believed these things could poison land, kill you with a single glance, and generally bring apocalyptic vibes to your Tuesday.
It's just crazy how people in these times just came up with these crazy folk tales and believed it was true.
Mm-hmm.
This creature is just How do they come up with this?
right? Zoe, do you remember the episode, my favorite episode of Doctor Who,
The Van Gogh.
the Van Gogh one?
Mm-hmm.
What was in there? What was the main bad guy in that episode?
Was it a rooster?
It was a huge, basically, they called it a cockatrice. I think that's how you say it. Yeah. They thought a rooster egg would hatch a snake chicken death monster. And here's the thing. If you already live in a world where disease wipes out half your town randomly, crops fail for no clear reason, and medical advice includes try applying more leeches, you might also be a little bit jumpy about weird eggs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the world they lived in for a second. Life felt very unstable, random, dangerous, and humans, we hate randomness. When life feels chaotic, we crave explanations. We need reasons. Can you guys think of anything today where people had totally disproportionate panic reactions to something?
Not really, no.
How about toilet paper and...
I was just about
Yeah?
to say that.
Go for it.
Toilet paper during COVID.
That's right. That's one of those ones. Yep.
All the toilet paper just disappeared.
Yep. Panic buying of toilet paper.
Stockpiling in general.
Stockpiling it for no reason whatsoever, despite there being no actual supply chain disruption. Like, that's a disproportionate reaction to what was going on.
Yeah, but like, why toilet paper?
That's part of the thing, though. That's kind of what we're talking about here. It's completely random and weird, and like there's no reason behind it. Yeah. It's just this mania. There was so much uncertainty around COVID-19 at the time that people had to grasp onto something, and for whatever reason it was stockpiling toilet paper.
It's kind of off topic, but is like the toilet paper kind of like the tulip mania, where it's like the bubble and then it bursts because people realize it's like not that big of a deal?
It is definitely adjacent to the tulip mania. Do you want to describe what the tulip mania was?
The tulip mania was something happened in the Netherlands, was it? Where everyone was just so obsessed with tulips and people were paying astronomical prices for it. And then one day the bubble burst, which is an economic term for basically it's like a bubble, you know, how it pops and then everything just goes down with it. So like just people start sell. That's kind of like how the Great Depression started because people realized like stocks were just going down. And then, yeah.
Yeah, it's very adjacent to this. The same kind of thought process is going on into this type of thing. So you see, this isn't just a medieval thing. It's a modern thing, too. We still do it today. When people are scared, we create narratives that make us feel like we understand what's happening, even if those narratives are completely wild.
Yeah, but comparing today to back then with these reactions, it's definitely like toned down a lot.
It is toned down. Yeah, I agree. It is toned down today.
Like
compared to what's going on in our story today.
Yeah, like buying a ton of toilet paper because you think you won't be able to is way less weird than killer rooster, let's kill it.
Well, it's what they believed then, you know? They believed these things. They had no science to disprove it. And even though today it's toilet paper and back then it was evil rooster eggs, you know, like it's still the same thought process behind it.
Yeah.
And how humans cope with things.
Yeah.
So back to our rooster. When something felt against nature, medieval people didn't file it under, nature's complicated. They filed it under, the devil has entered the group chat. A rooster laying an egg wasn't just weird. It was an omen. Not the follow your dreams kind of omen. More like the dark forces are active and we're all doomed kind of omen. Now here's where things go from weird farm mystery to full medieval horror movie. Animal trials were actually a thing for centuries.
It's like our Pope trial from episode 1. It's just so bonkers to think that you could put an animal on trial, a dead Pope on trial.
I need you to both really marinate in this sentence, okay? I'm going to repeat it. Animal trials were a thing for centuries.
That's 100 years.
Century. Yeah, well, okay. Well, centuries, it would be hundreds of years.
Okay, yeah.
This wasn't a one-time medieval prank.
Yeah.
Pigs were tried for killing children. Animals were dressed up in little clothes for court. There were even cases where entire swarms of rats or insects got summoned to church proceedings. Now, Gavin, how do you summon rats to court?
You gather them all up in a cage and then bring them to the courtroom.
That could be one way, and that's probably what they ended up doing.
Or with lure them with food.
Mm-hmm. Imagine being the guy trying to serve that subpoena to come to court, though, right? Rats of the parish, you are hereby ordered to appear. And the rats are just like, nope, not responding to your calendar invite, sorry.
Just like squeak.
But here's the thing. It wasn't really about guilt the way we think about it. These trials were about restoring order. They were public rituals. When people are terrified, procedure feels like control. A trial says, we are not helpless, we have rules, we have authority, someone is handling this. Even if that someone is prosecuting poultry. So, let's get to our main event. The most famous rooster trial is usually connected to Basel, Switzerland, around 1474. Here's how it went down. A rooster is accused of laying an egg. The town interprets this as an unnatural and demonic event. They don't shrug it off. They don't consult the farmer. They call the authorities. The rooster gets a trial. There's a witness. There's a prosecution. There might have been a defense lawyer. Though honestly, what do you even say? Your Honor, my client is a chicken. Objection! That's just foul play.
This is the same dilemma as the cadaver synod with the dead pope trial.
That's right.
And how are these animals supposed to defend themselves?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the rooster and the egg are sentenced to be burned publicly as a warning. It is really dark, but to them it wasn't comedy. It wasn't cruelty for fun. It was prevention. It was hazard removal. They genuinely believed they were protecting their community. Now, historians point out that we don't have tons of primary sources for this exact event. The story survives mostly through retellings, but here's what matters. The story was believable in its time. It fit how people understood the world, and it matched their fears. So, this may not have happened exactly like I just said, but something like it probably did, right?
Yeah.
We know animal trials happened. We know rooster egg panic was real. Whether this specific trial in Basel went down exactly this way is unclear, but the fact that people told this story and believed it, that's the real history. And here's the kicker. Once a community believes a narrative, once everyone agrees this egg is evil, the trial doesn't function like an investigation. It functions as confirmation. The verdict is baked into the accusation. When fear takes over, evidence becomes a costume that fear wears to look respectable. So yes, somewhere in medieval Europe, most famously in Basel around 1474, a rooster and its impossible egg became symbols of danger. A whole community responded with ritual, authority, and unfortunately, execution. And a very confused chicken became the defendant in humanity's eternal battle against uncertainty. Historiography. All right, Zoe, based on everything we just talked about, what do you think the historiography is like for this story?
It started off as like a moral panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it eventually evolved into kind of how we're like joking about it today. Like animal trials, that's crazy.
Yep. We don't have tons of primary sources for this specific trial. Most of what we know comes from later accounts and retellings, and the details shift depending on who's telling the story and when they're telling it. So how do you think we know that it's real?
Court records? Are there court records from that time?
If there are, they're very sparse and probably not primary.
Retelling to other generations of the stories of the
Partially.
animal trials.
Mm-hmm. Historians look at the context for this type of case. We know that animal trials happened. We have records of those. We know people feared roosters laying eggs because of the basilisk legends. That's well documented in medieval texts. We know the Basel story circulated and it was treated as credible. So while we can't confirm every exact detail, all the pieces fit. The story was believable because it matched medieval worldviews. It's kind of like, imagine someone in the year 2500 trying to verify a viral story from 2026. They might not find the original tweet, but if they can prove that the technology existed, the cultural context made sense, and similar stories were common, they can reasonably say, yeah, this probably happened in some sort of form. So the historiography here is limited primary evidence, but strong contextual support. We trust that it happened, just maybe not the perfect accuracy on every detail. Lessons we've learned today. All right, this is where we stop laughing and admit that this story is actually kind of a mirror. The Rooster Trial is absurd, but it's deeply human. What do you think we can learn from this?
People think that the government and the court systems can fix everything just with like the snap of a finger, but it's much bigger than that.
Okay. Gavin, any thoughts?
Don't believe everything you hear on the internet.
Yep, definitely. I've got a couple things here. Humans hate randomness, right?
Yeah.
When life feels unstable, we desperately want explanations. Random events are very unbearable for us, so we create stories that make them feel intentional, even if those stories are completely bonkers. For example, conspiracy theories about COVID-19, and the origins of COVID-19. People created elaborate narratives instead of accepting the pandemic sometimes just emerge naturally, right? Another thing about the randomness, kind of what you were talking about before, was the stock market crash in 1929.
Mm-hmm.
Attributing stock market crashes to specific villains rather than the complex systems that create the bubbles and things like that. Or even blaming school shootings on things like violent video games and music and stuff like that. There's no relation between the two, but people need some sort of story to make them feel in control of the situation. Another one is once a fear story spreads, it becomes truth. If enough people repeat the same explanation, it becomes reality, socially, emotionally, and politically. For example, viral misinformation about voter fraud in the 2020 election that persists despite being repeatedly debunked is a great example of that. Another story that gets repeated often, so often that people think it's the truth, are razor blades and Halloween candy. It's an urban legend, but it has become common knowledge that this has happened. So fear spreads these stories and they become truth. Just like the Rooster Trial, these modern examples show how fear creates uncertainty. This story isn't just a rooster was tried. The real story is fear creates uncertainty, and we still do this today. Viral fear spreads faster than careful explanations. We confuse loudness with proof. We look for simple villains to explain complicated problems. Medieval people weren't uniquely foolish. They were humans trying to feel safe in chaos, just like us. We just have better science and worse patience. It's time for the Fun Fact Challenge. All right, quiz time. 3 questions about today's story. You guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
Question 1. Where did the most famous Rooster Trial take place and what year?
Locked in.
Zoe.
Basel, Switzerland in 1474.
Correct.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I didn't write that down.
Question 2. What monster did people think could hatch from a rooster's egg?
Locked in.
Gavin.
A cockatrice or a basilisk?
Correct. Both were legendary snake rooster death creatures. And question 3. Why were animal trials considered important by medieval communities, even though they seem absurd to us today?
Locked in.
Oh, tie. You know what? I'm going to give you both one chance, and whoever has the better answer wins the round. Zoe, you go first.
Shouldn't Gavin go first? Because I think he's going to copy me.
No, I won't. Trust me.
He needs a better answer. It needs to be different and better. So
I already have an
Okay.
answer.
Cool. The trials were used to restore quote-unquote order in the communities and make people feel like justice was being served.
Okay. And Gavin.
They did it to have overall justice, not just in like human crimes, but also of animals.
Okay. Of those 2 answers, I think I'm going to give the round to... That's a drum roll. Ready? Drum roll?
Just add a drum roll in post.
Zoe.
Oh.
That was our first showdown.
I know.
Yeah, that was a good one. I really enjoyed that one. This day in history. All right, today is February 5th. In 1597, the 26 martyrs of Japan are executed. A group of early Japanese Christians, including both foreign missionaries and Japanese converts, were crucified in Nagasaki under orders from military ruler Toyotomi Hideyoshi. This marked a turning point as Christianity, which had grown rapidly in Japan, was increasingly seen as a political threat. Infighting between Spanish and Portuguese missionary groups, combined with shifts in Japanese leadership, led to Christianity being driven underground for centuries. February 5th, 1870, the first motion picture shown to a theater audience.
Ooh.
What movie was it? Or motion picture was it?
In Philadelphia, inventor Henry R. Heil demonstrated his phasmatrope at the Academy of Music, a device that projected sequential photographic images from a rotating disc to create the illusion of motion. The short film showed two dancers waltzing. This predated the famous Lumiere brothers' Paris screening by 25 years and highlighted Philadelphia's pioneering role in visual technology and early cinema. So it wasn't an actual movie per se as we know them today. It was just two people dancing the waltz.
It's still revolutionary, though.
Yeah.
That's right. February 5th, 2013, the UK House of Commons approves same-sex marriage. After extensive debate, the House of Commons voted 400 to 175 in favor of legalizing same-sex marriage in England and Wales at the bill's second reading. The Marriage Same-Sex Couples Act would receive royal assent later that year and take effect in 2014, making the UK one of the first major nations to extend full marriage equality nationwide. I love that. Yet another reason why I love the United Kingdom. So, there you have it. The rooster who faced medieval justice. It's easy to laugh at this story, but underneath is something important. How fear, belief, and social pressure can turn a weird event into a moral emergency. Next time you see a story spreading fast because it's terrifying and uncertain, remember the rooster. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the strange event itself. It's how desperately we need the world to make sense, even when it doesn't. That's it for this episode. Thanks for traveling through time with us on the Ebbs of History. If you liked today's story, share it with a teacher, a friend, or your family on Instagram at Ebbs of History. If you have any show ideas, corrections, or questions, you can contact us at questions@ebbsofhistory.com.
Signing off, this has been your co-hosts, Zoe,
Gavin,
and me, Jason, reminding you that history isn't just about dates and battles. It's about people, curiosity, and the weird, wonderful choices that shaped our world. Until next time, keep wondering, laughing, and learning through the Ebbs of History.